So we get a ton of questions about titanium. What can you use it on? How much does it cost? And will it hold up? Will it hold up is probably the biggest question. A lot of people that have been racing a long time are scared of titanium for whatever reason. I think people tried it back in the past, 4-link bars, and had issues with it deflecting or bending or whatever the problem was. I think a lot of that was the actual material used possibly, and back then they ran like 1.125" 4-link bar. So that could be a lot to do with it too. Now we run 1.5 inch, 125 wall hardened tube. So we'll also show you a little bit on how those tubes go together and what we've done to make sure they stay together and don't break. We also want to talk about what you can actually use it on. And for example, we'll show you a little bit on this car. And as this video goes, I'll put some pictures in the video of cars we've done in the past, because depending on the power level, you could do more or less. So obviously this is Cleetus McFarland's Eagle 69 Camaro. It's gonna be twin turbo, 5,000 horsepower. This car will have pretty much all the titanium we can use. So it'll have a fuel cell mount, lower control arms, suspension stuff, tie rods. In the rear, it'll have 4-link bars, upper, lower. It'll have anti-roll bar links, wishbone, which if you watch our other video, you'll see the titanium wishbone we built for it. It has a titanium steering column. So the actual column and the mounts are titanium. All the pedals are titanium. The actual steering shaft that goes to the rack is titanium. Quick connect is titanium. The window frames will be all titanium. So there's a bunch of titanium. We started doing a lot of titanium in 2017. Not a lot of people were doing titanium in 2017 to the extent that we wanted to do it. So we basically had to try a lot of stuff. Jamie Hancock was big in helping us with that. We built a lot of stuff for his car and tested a lot of stuff in his car. Back to what we were talking about, 4-link bars. He was the first one, I think, ran lowers. Everyone was kind of scared to run lowers. He ran lowers and uppers, anti-roll bar links, everything. One of the first cars to go 350s and 1/8 miles. On that car, we ran, being a nitrous car, it doesn't make the torque that this car or a blower car or Pro Charge car would make. But in that car, we ran 1.5 inch, 0.95 4-link bars, and we didn't put them together the way we put our 4-link bars together today. So being that held up, we made a few changes. We knew they would work. That was a radial car. A lot of people got scared with the big tire car. They shake, it's gonna break stuff. So that was another test. So then we built a lot of 4-link bars for a couple big tire cars. Rob Honeycutt's Pro Nitrous car has them for years. He's been, I think, 9.1 or 9.2, 60 foot. Knock on wood, we haven't had any problems with any of them. No failures really with any titanium. Actually, Justin crashed his car, got hit in the back, broke a ton of stuff, and it broke the 5/8 rod end and not the wishbone. So they hold up pretty good. Even on our wishbones, we went from a chromoly slider. Instead of doing a titanium slider, we moved straight aluminum slider. And we've been running those now pretty much everything. Disco Dean has a aluminum slider, all the 4-link bars, the wishbone, all the stuff on his car, everything's good to go. One of the most impressive things though that we've done with titanium is Bobby Dodgel's 4-wheel drive truck. It's been 3s and 1/8 mile, and it's 4-wheel drive, which is absolutely amazing. The stuff he wanted me to build for that and the material we built it out of, I told him, I said, Bobby, I don't know if this stuff's gonna hold up. But he was willing to try it, and we did it, and it's been wild. That thing drives, as soon as it leaves the starting line, the wheels are trying to drive in, and if it holds up with that, it'll hold up in anything. And we did tie rods, steering arms are like 30 inches long, only 1-inch tube. And you would think that that would try to crush that, no problems. It's got like front ladder bar stuff. It's got our drive shaft enclosure stuff. It's got everything, and it holds up fine. Going back to what we can do on other cars, we built a Scion, which was a 2JZ, and that was going to be my personal car, and it has a ton of titanium. It has the most titanium we've ever done on any car, but the Scion, being a straight 6 turbo deal, doesn't make the torque like this car makes. So what we did in that car, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing in this car. But in the Scion, from here, from the rear seat bar all the way to the very front, the dual frame rail is all titanium. It bolts in. It has a sleeve in the titanium and bolts. And then every diagonal and brace upright is all titanium. So that saved a good amount of weight like I said, I wouldn't do it in this, but it holds up fine in that car. Also in that car, from the rear shocks, which is pretty much about here back, everything is titanium. The rear section of the chassis is titanium. When you go to do that, you have to mount the parachute to the rear end housing and not to the chassis at that point. So no big deal, but just something to think about. That's a good amount of weight. That's probably 10 or 15 pounds right there. The dual frame rail was probably also another 15-ish pounds or so. So it's a good amount of weight to save, especially with a car that doesn't make a lot of torque. That's a huge thing for those cars. They have to be super light. I think that car with fuel, water, has an intercooler, everything was like 1,930 pounds. So it's a super light car. And that was with a fiberglass body. It didn't even have a carbon body. So you can really, when you get to the point where you're just out of stuff to take away, the titanium is expensive, but it's the only option you really have when you get that far along and you just have to save more weight. If you wanted to do pretty much everything in titanium, like we were talking about the Scion with the dual frame rails and everything, to do that over chromoly, you'd spend about $50,000. I know that seems like a lot of money, and well, it is a lot of money, but when you're building a $500,000 car, if you spend the $50,000 up front and you save 60 or 70 pounds, it's something you don't have to do later. Something else we use titanium on a lot are the firewalls and driver's floors. We use 025 titanium. We fasten, we drill and tap the chassis. If you look where the clecos are, there'll be a 632 stainless screw there, drilled and tapped into the chassis. We roll the edge so that it seals really good to the tube. Still seals really well, and between the firewall and the floor, you can save 10 pounds. That's another 10 pounds. So that's a lot of weight. And these sheets, it takes about 3 sheets to do the firewall and the floor. And these sheets are about $325 a piece. We sell a ton of these sheets. So for whatever that is, $1,000 roughly, you can save 10 pounds. Which, believe it or not, that's a big amount of weight for that price. Something else we do a ton of, we sell these kits, and we put these in every car, is the drive shaft enclosures. This drive shaft enclosure has to be pretty stout, because if the U-joint lets go or the drive shaft lets go, well, this is your only protection from it taking your leg out. So it's pretty important to be stout. The reason we put a brace up here, a lot of people have like 1 loop going to the chassis or 2 loops going to the chassis. We run 2 going to the chassis and 1 up here. The reason for that is because this upper frame rail is pretty long, and we don't want that frame rail deflecting. So this actually acts as a stiffener in the middle of the frame rail. This will get 2 rolled halves of 050 titanium sheet. That'll be 18 inches long roughly. It really only has to be 12 inches long. We do it 18, and then the rest in the back is aluminum. Really, the biggest thing you're protecting is the U-joint and the yoke. That's the only thing that's heavy that's really going to hurt you. If you have a carbon drive shaft, which at this level you should not have a steel drive shaft, if the carbon comes apart, it just kind of disappears, it just turns to dust. So this is the biggest thing. This will have a sheet inside, and then we've been doing from here to here another sheet on the outside, just to make sure if it does happen to go through the first layer, it doesn't come into the driver. So this is a big part of not only saving weight, but to be safe. So a lot of the cars we've been doing 2 of these, because at this level the drive shafts do come apart, and this is something that's kind of a pain to send back to the chassis shop just to get another one made. So with this car, with Jamie's car, we have made 2, so he has a spare. If he has an issue, he can just pull this one out, put the other one in, we can remake the spare in his downtime. These drive shaft enclosure kits for titanium is about a $2,000 kit for just the pieces pre-notched. If you were to get the same kit in chromoly, it'd be about $350, but or $400. So that gives you a little bit of perspective. But for that $1,600, you're saving 10 pounds here also. So let's go in a parts room, and we'll actually show you a piece of chromoly to a piece of titanium and the cost of it, so you can see what the difference is and what the weight difference is. All right, so we got a few of our more popular pieces we sell in titanium. A lot of people ask, how much are you gonna save? What's it gonna cost per pound to save in titanium? Well, it really depends on what you're doing, but that answer is from $100 to $500 a pound. And yeah, that sounds pretty crazy for sure, but by the time you add the labor and everything into it, that's about what you'll save. When you're doing titanium and you're notching it, you can't notch it quite as easily as you can chromoly. You have to use an end mill, and if you sand on it a lot with like a regular 4-inch tiger paw or something, it just work hardens, and then it just kind of smears around. It doesn't really work well. So it is harder to work with. Also, like on our drive shaft loops, this is chromoly, this is titanium. This one is about 17 ounces, and this one is 27 ounces. So it's a good amount of weight. The other benefit with titanium is you don't have to powder coat it. So if you powder coat all your parts, you're going to have weight just from the powder coating. That's another big thing. Our 4-link bar stuff, this is titanium and this is moly. If you do 4-link bars typically, and they're the same apples to apples, not I had 1.25 inches and I went to 1.5 inches titanium, I didn't save that much weight. Well, you probably won't. But if you switch from 1.5 inches to 1.5 inches and our normal average length bar, you're going to save about 6 pounds. We talked a little bit about our 4-link bars and trying to make them hold up. This is a hardened material. This is 120 wall. We built Jamie's stuff out of 95, so this is more than stout for what we had in his car. Also, we make our own tube adapters in-house. We make them where they're press fit, so it doesn't just go in. You got to actually press this in. We put 2 plug welds in there. The reason for that is you don't want any movement getting in there trying to start a crack and basically cause a failure. These are also, when welding is very critical, you can't just go in there and go crazy with it like you could moly. You can't just weld all the way around it. You can only weld about 3/4 of an inch, and then you got to stop and have a lot of post flow. You can't let the piece get too hot. If you can see the weld's either gold or silver on these. Here's another example of that. A gold or silver weld is what you're looking for. You don't want a big heat ring. If you got titanium and people think it's cool because it's blue and red, it's not ideal and it's not very strong. So for a window frame, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to break and cause massive failure, but if a 4-link bar fails, it's not going to be good. So with our 4-link bar stuff, if you were to go with moly 4-link bars, 1.5 inch, 120 wall stuff for all 4 bars with no rod ends, you're looking at about $350 or $400. You go with titanium, you're looking at $1,400 to $1,500. That's about 6 pounds difference for $1,100. That's like $185 a pound. We really specialize a lot in titanium. The builds we do, we try to do, we kind of try to cater to people that really like detailed stuff. We have a team of people here that are very talented and can't let anything go out the door that's not perfect, or at least the best we can possibly do. And we keep pushing ourselves. We try to re-engineer stuff. We're really trying to stay ahead of the curve. With the titanium, like I said, we were there was people doing it, but we were one of the first to really push the suspension stuff and continue to grow. If any of you guys have any questions on anything we went over today, or questions we might not have covered that you wanted to hear covered, put it in the comments below, and maybe we'll do a questions and answers. If not, I try to answer all the comments I can. There has been a lot, but I'll do my best to get to them. And if you haven't gone to our website and checked out our merch yet, we got some pretty cool designs. And until midnight tonight, we actually have 10% off from Memorial Day. So go over there and check that out. Thanks again for everyone that's been supporting. It's been awesome. I can't wait to make more content. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe.